What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the fourth album by Demi Lovato. Basically, this album is called Demi and it came out in the spring of 2013. So the thing about this album is it followed up her hit album from 2011 called Unbroken, which was kind of, she saw it as generic, but it was kind of, from what I remember that project, I remember hearing a couple singles off of it, and it was kind of a lot more more composed and kind of makeshift type stuff on there. But this album kind of has some of that also. But the initial stuff that I found out about Demi Lovato, this is one of the first projects that I messed with. I do remember a little bit of Unbroken, but Unbroken and Demi both kind of have like a variation of kind of more makeshift pop, which despite the fact that she was like 16, 17, 19, 20 when she made these two albums, the thing about it was she had a lot of just straightforward kind of makeshift kind of music that just launched into like a different kind of sound. It's just kind of that it seemed like that was more of her come up as far as that kind of went. She was kind of similar to Miley Cyrus and Ariana Grande, and there's like someone else, Selena Gomez, some of those type folks that kind of did that sort of thing. But like she switched her style quite a bit on Confident, which I reviewed back in May. That was kind of a different kind of project, and that had some hit singles on there, and I did like that project. But I do like Demi quite a bit. This is actually a pretty nice one. And the thing about it kind of is it has 4 hit singles on here, so this album charted for quite a while. It was a lot of fun to kind of mess with, and it's straightforward, but it has like a pretty dual dichotomy of just being able to have like the day life and the night life, where I feel like Demi on this particular album didn't full blown embrace like the nightlife style that she would do on like Confident and later albums, but it did at least have a good pitch as far as being. I mean, she was still a minor when she made this album, so it's this kind of she was still a minor when she made this album, so it wasn't full blown as if, I mean, she probably could go to like EDM dance clubs and that type of stuff, but not in the full blown pitch of like drink heavy type cuts as far as that kind of goes. But there is some cuts on here. There's some summer fun like songs like Made in the USA. Heart Attack is actually a makeshift bop, but it's also a club song in like a minor sense. So there is some stuff on here that kind of has that. But I do like the concept of this album. I do like the concept of this album. It has a good variation of things, and it's pretty versatile. That's definitely the thing about it. It's definitely a pretty versatile project that has a lot of good moments to kind of have just throughout some of these times. I mean, it can be a summer album, it can be a makeshift album, it can be kind of like there is like light licks of EDM on here, so there's just a number of kind of things that it winds up kind of doing. And it's pretty contemporary for what was happening in 2013. It takes real good advantage of that, and this is not something that was slashed of its like commercial fare. So it's a pretty commercial project, but it has like the right pitch of just having like the kind of bubblers on here that kind of make you want to get up and jive and that type of stuff, is along with like the songs that are kind of good for makeshift car malaise and some of that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. So it's just good to kind of get that. But there were 4 singles on here, and there were 4 singles on this album. They all had pretty good degrees of like quality success on here, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of these. The first single was Heart Attack. This is kind of a makeshift kind of club cut. It's really hooky. It's an SFW kind of dance record, and it's good for day commerce. I would definitely say it's a real hooky kind of gem on here. This is one of the first songs I initially remember hearing by Demi Lovato. This is just a real nice one in terms of like its melodies and the catchiness that it kind of has. And the thing about it is it kind of blurs the lines between something that you can listen that's SFW and it's something that you can listen that's SFW and can be played, during work and some of those type things, and just in the standard day commerce and like, noon and 11 o'clock in the morning, brunch fare, bookstore fare, some brunch fare, day commute, that type of stuff. But it can also kind of be played as like a mini kind of evening bubbler, just as far as that kind of goes. It's kind of one of those ones. It may not be like pitch of midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning type stuff, but it's definitely a pretty good bubbler for like 6:30, 7:30 p.m., something in that sort of sense. It's a good, nice mini kind of dance bop as far as that kind of goes, just for like some early kind of starting of that. But it just works. It's pretty like versatile kind of song in terms of how it did. So that's a nice one. Real nice lead single. The second single is Made in the USA, and this is one that didn't chart as heavily as Heart Attack, but I do like this song. I'm kind of surprised nowadays that it didn't. It's kind of an overlooked Demi Lovato song. It's just not one that gets a lot of airplay, and I kind of feel like that's a disappointment because it's about the same pitch as Heart Attack, just in a more summer and kind of beach sense, and just kind of more summer activity, cookout, some of those type moments where you just would be outside and that sort of thing. The summer charm kind of song. It's an easy kind of vacay song, and I feel feel like it's just got some relaxed kind of day calmer. So I would definitely say about it. It really feels like standard. It just feels like standard summer life as far as that kind of goes. Just like warm weather activities, cookouts, picnics, some of those type things, beer swilling, some of that type of stuff. Just as far as just like just date kind of just standard date afternoons, taking Bay out for a picnic, some of those type of situations. It's real kind of easy kind of summer charm. I would have to say it's just a real nice one. It's just surprising that this one didn't. I mean, it's for what it is. I mean, it's not quite as immediately hooky as Heart Attack, but I feel like it's a pretty good follow up. It's in the same craft and vein as that. I feel like it probably can be more car commute and makeshift commute, kind of like Heart Attack, but it just kind of has a little bit more relaxation about it and R&R type feels. But it's the same kind of concept. It's a good 1-2 punch to get some of these makeshift kind of songs. This one's more summer oriented. So that's a nice one. Neon Lights is the third single, and this is kind of where things pick up. This one's a little bit more like less SFW than Heart Attack, where I feel like this one is kind of another dance song, but it's just a vintage minor EDM hit, and it's some dramatic fun on here. It's got some, I would say about Neon Lights, it's a vintage minor EDM hit. It's got some dramatic fun dance vibes, and it's got an electric kind of atmosphere. This is probably one of the best songs on the album. I definitely feel like this is just like a David Guetta type song, or something that was kind of pitching, something that really had like an electric pitch back in 2013, the sort of stuff that Pitbull and Flo Rida were kind of doing, some of that type of stuff. This is just really crafted for like EDM and dance floors. This is probably one of the most litty songs on the album. This is one that I mean, this is probably one that I wouldn't play as much like in the heat of like day commerce at work and that type of stuff, like Made in the USA and Heart Attack. But it is a pretty nice dance floor kind of one where you just let your hair down and some of that type of stuff and just kind of have a more ambient and kind of ferocious kind of time. I would have to say it's just a good, I mean, this is probably one of the crazier. This is what Demi Lovato was probably talking about when she said she wanted to have a better time. She has said that she wanted to she said she wanted to tear things up a little bit more on this particular album. So that's kind of the thing as far as getting that. This is just one where it's a little bit crazier, a little bit more jivey, but still, I mean, this is still pretty composed compared to some certain EDM that you'll see. I would have to say for Demi Lovato at the time, considering how some of her earlier records were, this is crazy enough for her. But there are, of course, far crazier records, but this is fun. I mean, this is dramatic fun on here. This is a great EDM hit, so it's just a nice bop for kind of getting that. It's real kind of infectious energy on this song. Really Don't Care is the fourth single, and this is kind of a song that I remember hearing on like a Target commercial or something like that back in the day. It just really kind of comes off as like poppy, makeshift kind of day commute. I would definitely say about it. It's SFW and kind of has regular day feels about it, and it's just a nice bop. I mean, it's kind of a jivey makeshift kind of song where it's makeshift, but it kind of has like some boppish kind of feels about it, where it's something that you could probably have like a little miniature kind of dance or jig to, something like that. But it's just kind of the concept that I think this is just kind of an in-betweener kind of song that still has some of that leftover, hey, I still have coworkers and stuff like that, and standard commerce to take care of, but it's just kind of one where you just are having some fun in that sort of sense. So it's just kind of, I do like some of these songs. These makeshift hits are pretty good, because the thing about these songs, the thing about three of the makeshift singles on this album, Heart Attack, Made in the USA, and Really Don't Care, is they all kind of have that particular kind of jive as far as like wanting to not be so immersed in like makeshift, but just kind of still being in that process of kind of being the conduit to getting towards like the more adamant nightlife. But I do like that Demi, at least I do like the fact that Demi made these songs for like the concept of just having, bringing some electricity and spice to like makeshift, because certain makeshift songs can be that way, but they just really feel like they have like the day kind of commute drear of like standard Monday through Friday kind of life. And I feel like Demi Lovato's variation of some of these songs had a lot more electricity. It's just kind of like, hey, you have to be here 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever time you have to be here in that sort of sense. But it's at least kind of amongst the context that she had the energy to kind of have that sort of build. She does have some good energy about her, just to be able to, I do feel like Demi Lovato's energy on these songs provide more energy than like the standard kind of makeshift fare that kind of goes along with it. So it's a good variation to be able to get that, just being able to say that these are some good ones to kind of, like Heart Attack has the right kind of jive towards it, just has that right kind of energy, and Made in the USA is an infectious kind of summer single, and Really Don't Care is kind of like a nice jig and jive about it that just kind of happens. So those are some good ones. Just kind of the transition between going from work life to nightlife as far as that kind of goes. And then Neon Lights is of course the night fair. But so yeah, just to talk about some of the songs on here. There's 13 songs on here, and out of those 13, I wound up recommending 9. So I'll go ahead and recommend those 9 songs. That would be Heart Attack, Made in the USA, Neon Lights, Really Don't Care, Without the Love, Firestarter, Something That We're Not, Never Been Hurt, and Shouldn't Come Back. So the only real 4 songs I don't recommend would just be, the only 4 songs I don't recommend, we'll talk about these real quick, would be Two Pieces, Nightingale, Encase, and Warrior. And the thing about all 4 of these songs is they're all kind of more down-tempo kind of piano ballads that just kind of have a more sluggish kind of pace, and just kind of like, the thing about all 4 of those songs I listed is they all kind of have like a more piano ballad, kind of down tempo, kind of sluggish type feel about them. That this is a lot more emotive and just like a more kind of plain and basic kind of sense that just doesn't really jump off the page in terms of like the compellingness of it. It's not to say they're horrid songs. It's just kind of the concept that like I feel like they're just typical kind of makeshift kind of piano ballads that are just, you know, this sort of factory stuff that this is kind of for more just kind of ruminating in like a more homely sense that you see on most standard albums. And it's not like Demi Lovato probably can't do these. It's just the fact that they just kind of feel really stock and factory made, and it's just kind of the same concept about it. They're just typical kind of album fluff that goes along with it. I mean, they suit their purpose if you need some down tempo kind of moments, but I just feel like they just were kind of they suit their purpose, but I feel like Demi probably could have made these have a little bit more spark, especially in terms of the production as to how some of those kind of went. They just didn't quite have the electricity that the mid tempo and some of these up tempo kind of songs kind of had. But so to talk about some of these, like Firestarter is a really nice one. This is kind of a rowdy, kind of pumped up dance cut, and this is like some real good night fare. It's a minor EDM type hit on here, and it's got a good contagious jive about it. This one's a little bit even further turned up than Neon Lights, where I feel like Neon Lights and Firestarter are both 2 really good ones for a good sense of nightlife, and this is one that completely kind of ditches like the makeshift kind of feel, but it's a nice one. This is good pitch of early 2010s Demi Lovato, where she was still kind of in like the in-between stages of that, but it's a good nice one to kind of get some of that. Another nice up-tempo kind of song that's similar to Firestarter and Neon Lights is Never Been Hurt. This is kind of a dramatic, tense build of like a bubbler type song. It's a very good mid-tempo dance bop, and it kind of reminds me of something that Katy Perry would do. It definitely reminds me of something like Firework or something like that. This has a real dramatic feel about it, good production on here, and it's kind of like one of the more kind of composed but still kind of nice essence of like a song as far as like these up tempo ones kind of goes. It's kind of a surprising one for Demi just because the energy of it's a little bit different from the typical kind of EDM type stuff, but it is a pretty nice highlight. Just a good one for that sort of sense. Infectious. Shouldn't Come Back is a down-tempo song that I haven't listened to as much, but I do like the composition of this song. It's a very sluggish, kind of acoustic, kind of hands-full kind of song. It's a down-tempo kind of hangout song, and it just has some lazy malaise about it. I would definitely say this is a good kind of romantic kind of song and a more kind of relationship kind of fare as far as that kind of goes. But I like the concept of just kind of getting this kind of sluggish, kind of warm weather kind of day as far as that kind of goes. Just some good malaise for that sort of concept. It's a nice one. Without the Love is kind of another makeshift kind of fare. It's an R&B cut, some day commerce, and just has like a regular day kind of fare about it, and some car commute and malaise, I would definitely say. This really feels like something you'd listen to just on the way home or just standard errand running, that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. It's kind of like a more relaxed version of Heart Attack. It's the same sort of pitch and energy as Heart Attack, but just kind of in a more kind of relaxed kind of sense and just kind of standard kind of fare. I feel like this is just a good album cut to kind of get just in the concept of just like standard, you know, regular kind of fare, typical kind of day type stuff. Something That We're Not's another nice one. This is kind of like a bickering kind of song. I definitely like this song. It's just kind of a different pitch for Demi. She's a little bit annoyed in this song. I do like the concept of that. Something That We're Not's kind of like a nice mid-tempo kind of bickering song. It's a nice pitch of romance on there, and it's kind of a gem, I would have to say. Just interesting kind of the back and forthness of the song, and then it's kind of interesting the back and forthness of the song, just kind of how that one kind of goes. It's really kind of like a standard kind of argumentative type song as far as that kind of went. It's just kind of a good kind of job. I mean, the song does not have as much venom if you're not like the song does not have as much venom if you're not in that sort of spotlight at that particular moment, but I would have to say it is a nice one to kind of have. It's a good song to kind of have in that sort of sense as far as that kind of goes. So I would have to say, like, yeah, so that's 9 songs out of 13 that I wound up recommending. So me liking 9 out of 13 on here, I'm going to give this album like a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed this project. It's full of compact kind of fare. It's really got some makeshift moments like Heart Attack, Made in the USA, Really Don't Care, Without the Love. Some of those type moments has some good EDM type feels with Neon Lights and Firestarter and Never Been Hurt. And then it has like, some relationship fare just in a sluggish sense with Shouldn't Come Back. And then it kind of has like a bickering kind of song with Something That We're Not. So it's just kind of a good concept, just some good balance, and just standard kind of fare. I mean, really, this album's a good jolt of a good time. That's kind of the concept about it. It's just kind of like the conduit point where I do think that Demi was starting to cross over into more wild and kind of more carnivorous kind of territory. But I like the concept of just the pitch of this album. Like sometimes when the energy gets turned up and it gets completely switched. When it gets completely switched to demon time, you forget about some of these makeshift moments. But I think this is like a pretty solid balance. I mean, maybe there's more makeshift songs this time than get crazy kind of songs and after work demon time kind of songs compared to later albums and stuff like that, or even from other artists or something. But I feel like this is a good concept of just getting this pitch from Demi, that I do like these songs. I do appreciate songs like Heart Attack and Made in the USA. They are necessary for day commerce and that type stuff. There's some real good moments for that, and I think that's kind of the concept about it, is just being able to kind of have that. I would say really, maybe if there had been like 1 or 2 more songs that would have been like Firestarter and Neon Lights, it would have been a great thing. But for what it is, I feel like this is a pretty almost solitary balance of what needs to kind of happen, especially from an R&B artist and pop artist as far as that kind of goes, I would have to say. So it's good. 9 out of 10. I'm trying to figure out what I want to give the social score. The social score, I'm going to give a 10. I'm going to give the social score a 10. I'm going to give the social score a 10 out of 10 because I like the pitch. It had 4 singles that charted real well. Like I said, it has a really good balance of like day life and night life, and it just really has that concept pretty damn well. And I feel like the pitch behind it, there's just a lot of good jive and fun on here, and it just nails things for the most part pretty damn well. So basically, I would say pretty much 3/4 of this project has some degree of jive and just kind of social kind of atmosphere about it, just to really connect with things. And I just feel like that's kind of the concept. So I mean, maybe it could have used like maybe 1 or 2. Maybe it could have used at least 1 or 2 more songs that could have had a little bit more jive and dance floor type vibes about it. But I feel like out of 13, getting 9 songs out of 13 that have like a good social kind of feel about it is just pretty collective. So that's the thing. I give the social score a 10. In terms of the future, like Demi Lovato has a remix album that's getting ready to come out. That's going to be called Revamped. It's coming out in September 2023. And I would say that also she dropped an album called like Holy Fuck or something like that pretty recently. So there is some more Demi that I'm going to get to, but this is a pretty excellent album. This is chock full of good quality on here, and it has the right balance of day commute and night commute.